Jornal Brazil, widely known as JB, is a daily newspaper published by Editora JB in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The paper was founded in 1891 and is the third oldest extant Brazilian paper, after the Diário de Pernambuco and O Estado de S.Paulo. However, on the 31st of August 2010 it became a digital newspaper, folding its print edition. History. It is often believed that the newspaper was founded by former supporters of the recently deposed monarchy and sported conservative views in its early decades. However, at the time, the monarchy was leading the fight for the end of slavery, so can be considered liberal for the period. Many important Brazilian writers and journalists eventually worked for Jornal de Brazil, especially after the 1964 coup d'état. Jornal de Brazil was an important opponent for challenging censorship, although it never was radically against the dictatorship, and its editors did not follow a rebellious line against the government. Rather, they avoided such conflict. At times, however, but to a lesser extent than the São Paulo paper Estado, they replaced censored news with cake recipes, or news from articles on international news instead of polemic Brazilian stories. What some people do not realize that the newspaper made its great profits from the advertisement it sold. It had at times up to 5 supplements on different areas of the Rio market. To sell almost anything in Rio de Janeiro, the main city in Brazil at the time, you had to advertise in JB. News was of secondary consequence until its owner, the Countess, decided to change the line of the paper to a more standard journal, that its journalism was taken more seriously. In 1992, the paper published an unflattering photo of Henry Kissinger on the front page. Kissinger's lawyer sent a cease and desist letter threatening to sue them if they sold the photo. The newspaper refused, and one of the buyers was the advertising agency Woolwood and Amp Partners, who used it in an advertisement for computer equipment. Woolwood and Amp Partners was also threatened with legal action. The photograph was also used in the 1996 book Washington Babylon by Alexander Cockburn and Ken Silverstein. The paper suffered after the Brazilian boom years, having too much credit in dollar. With the oil crisis, their stocks fell and they suffered until they were sold. JB was the first Brazilian newspaper to have an electronic edition, which included partial PDF publishing. In 2002, it was sold to businessman Nelson Tanure, who restructured it again. It still holds slightly left positions compared to its major rival O Globo. JB is pictured in the Academy Award-nominated film Cidade de Deus as the newspaper where the main character, Buscapé, begins working as a photographer. The movie is set in Rio de Janeiro during the 1960s-1980s, the golden age of the paper, before it started its long decaying period. On the 31st of August 2010, JB ceased its printed version. It will continue only as an online newspaper.